The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Trending Topics News Radio with Tom Simon and Fred Wallin. I'd like to introduce Tom Simon.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Good to have you with us, folks, from Scottsdale, Arizona at the golf course today. I'm Tom Simon. Fred Wallin is in Westlake Village, California, just a stone's throw away from the beach. Fred, Rudy Giuliani got up swinging today, and he didn't hit anybody. What did you think of that?
I think he hit himself. Folks, on most of the political issues, Tom and I are going to be 180 degrees apart, at least 150 degrees apart. On this one, I think we're right on the same plane. Every time, I want Rudy to talk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want him.
Well, I don't.
But the point is, we both agree that he's a fool. We both agree, I think, that he has made Trump even look worse and sound worse and be worse than he even is. I think we all agree on that. Folks, what we're talking about is, Trump, I don't know how many hundreds of times has indicated, I never colluded. No, there's no collusion. There's no collusion. I don't know how many hundreds of times he said it. So Rudy goes on some shows yesterday and he says, well, collusion's really not a crime. Folks, Rudy said collusion is not a crime. Trump says he's never colluded. I laughed. You laughed. Even Trump supporters laughed. Maybe Tom laughed. But anyway.
No, I did not laugh. I cringed. I don't understand, when you look at the headlines, folks, you look at the headlines, and whether you support Trump or whether you support somebody else, you have to be real about things. And being real means calling it like you see it. And Rudy Giuliani is the worst spokesperson for anybody, anywhere, anytime. Now, he rode to prominence back during 9/11 when he was labeled America's mayor. And he did a good job from the public relations standpoint there. I was not a fan of his then, though I was willing to pat him on the back for the job he did for New York and for the country at that time. But boy, I'll tell you right now, folks, look at what he says and then look at the headlines after he speaks and tell me that he is doing a good job for Trump. I don't think so. What are you thinking there in the White House to continue to push this guy out there? And I don't have anything against old people. I'm an old guy. Fred's an old guy. Ralph's an old guy. That's okay to be old. But when you have lost a step so much that people are laughing at you and people are cringing when you talk, it's time to step aside. I wish you would. I doubt he's going to. Fred?
Well, Trump obviously hired him. Trump has made nothing but mistakes in the people he's hired. And we've talked about this on the other show on Facebook at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 o'clock in the East. We've talked about that many, many times, the high percentage of people that have been hired and fired by Donald Trump. So if he right away, after a few months, fires him, or if they come up with some excuse that Rudy's got some health ailment or something, then Trump looks like even more a fool than he really is. I think that's the bottom line. I just think, look, it's not as if there's a group of 5 people in a room with Trump deciding who gets hired. Trump is the most hands-on human being on earth. Nobody can disagree with that. So based on that, he's making the final decision. He hired Rudy. Rudy's a joke. And so he's trying to, I'm sure in his head, he's trying to say, I'm sure he's angry at some of the things that Rudy's done, but he's trying some way to keep him going along. But every single time Rudy opens his mouth, in my opinion, he puts Trump in deeper danger.
Well, every time he opens his mouth, I think that's the last time they're going to push him out there. And they keep putting him out there. Today on CNN, it was just atrocious. I can just imagine, having been somebody that worked at CNN in Los Angeles, what they were doing in the booth while Giuliani was talking today. They must have just been glued to the window there, thinking, is he really saying this stuff on our network? And not wanting to take a commercial break because the stuff was so rich. Giuliani kept saying crazy, crazy things. he talked, folks. He talked about Michael Cohen. He called Michael Cohen some very derogatory names, including scumbag, I believe it was. I believe that Michael Cohen is a scumbag. However, I don't believe that you need your spokesperson going out there and saying that. Why do I believe he's a scumbag? Same reason Rudy Giuliani does. You don't tape your client, especially when your client is going to be the president of the United States. You don't tape your client without your client knowing it. I've never heard of that before, Fred. As Giuliani says, he hasn't. But Giuliani doesn't need to be the mouthpiece in this particular case. Final say on this issue.
So 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, when Giuliani goes on national TV and says that Michael Cohen's one of the great guys ever and he'll support Trump to the death and things like that, you disregard that 6 weeks ago and just now because Trump and Cohen are having a slight disagreement, all of a sudden he comes from being the best human being on earth to being the worst. So see, that's another
well. In Giuliani's defense, Fred, and he said this today, he had no idea that Cohen had taped the presidential candidate at that time. He had no idea that he had taped his client. You can change your opinion. You can change your opinion based on new facts. And the new facts are that Giuliani found out that Cohen had taped the president, and that made him a scumbag. That changed his opinion of him. I buy that completely. What I don't buy is this old guy being trotted out to try and talk to the reporters about Trump, and he's blowing it each and every time, and they keep sending him out there. That's what I do not buy.
Well, all I can say is this. First of all, how many times did Trump say that Cohen's not his attorney? How many times did he say that? I would bet you he said that 50 times, that Cohen was never really his attorney. So basically, what Cohen was a deal maker, was the fixer. He really wasn't his attorney. Trump said that. So certainly if you're not his attorney, you can certainly tape it. In New York, of course, it's a one-person tape state, meaning only one person has to know. And what I'm praying for, and I mean this in all sincerity, is that it's a Twilight Zoner, but I can't wait for it to happen, that Cohen actually taped Don Jr. telling Trump that he was going to meet with the Russians. I'm going to say, I've said this last week, I don't know if it's this show or another show, but you can tape now with anything. You can tape with a wristwatch. You can tape with a small thing in your pocket. You can tape anything. How do we know? You know, Cohen's never said, I don't have that tape. Maybe there's Lonnie Davis is setting Trump up for the biggest shocker of even Trump's life, that it's all on tape of Don Jr. telling Don Sr., hey, the Russians got some bad stuff on Hillary. We're going to meet with them in an hour. What do you think? And Trump says, go get them. Wouldn't that be great if we're on tape?
Well, you deal in all this pontificating. I don't deal in that. If that becomes something that we have to deal with at some point as fact, I'll talk about it. But I'm not going to talk about something that hasn't materialized just because you hope that it happens.
Wait a minute.
But let's move on to some.
If you're an attorney for him, if you're an attorney for Michael.
Here you go with your hypotheticals, Fred. I hate your hypotheticals.
No, I'm just saying common sense. If you're an attorney, Lanny Davis or any of his previous attorneys, you would hide the fact that you taped it because
I wouldn't tape it. It's unethical to tape it, Fred.
No, you can. Look, it's not unethical. He wasn't. Remember, Trump said he's not his attorney. He really was.
It's unethical. It's unethical for an attorney to tape it. Fred.
No, wait a minute. If he's not his attorney, first of all, you know, if people are going after Cohen, like he can lose his bar license. Well, Cohen can say he's got tapes of Trump saying, I really wasn't Trump's attorney. I was just his fixer. I was just the guy that fixed the times that he had affairs with women, got the women paid off, hush money, and it just happened to be 5 times right before the election, in this case in 2016. So all I'm saying is that if I'm an attorney...
The New York bar is never going to buy that. That is pure baloney.
Fine. If I'm an attorney for Michael Cohen and I have a tape of Trump saying that, Donald Trump Jr. saying that to Trump, I'm not telling anybody at this point. I'm going to wait to the very end and have Trump and Rudy step in it much, much deeper. Then it's going to come out.
Let's move on to another story, a big, big story happening right now. And we'll get back to politics, folks. Don't worry about that. There's so much to talk about in politics right now. You're listening to Trending Topics News Radio Live. I'm Tom Simon on the golf course in Scottsdale, Arizona. Fred Wallin is in Westlake Village, California, very close to Hollywood, and sometimes he writes Hollywood scripts right here on this program. But I want to talk about a very serious story, Fred, that's happening in Northern California, in Redding, California, right now as we speak. A fire season. Fire takes the lives of some young ones. At least 6 people have died so far in California. The one that gets me is this great grandfather who has now chronicled the story of how his great grandson, 5 years old, calls him up on the telephone and says, "Great grandpa, come and get me. The fire's getting close." What happened was the great grandfather had spent the afternoon clearing brush around the house and went into town because there was no, at that time, idea that his house was in jeopardy for the moment. When he came back, he couldn't get back through the fire lines. He was stopped. He got the phone call from his great grandson. His great grandson, just 5 years old, begging, imploring his great grandfather to come and get him. And the great grandfather could not get through police and fire lines and was forced to sit and listen to his great grandson beg him to come get him before the phone went dead. Phone went dead. He called back and went to voicemail. He called back again and went to voicemail. When they found the boy and his siblings and the great grandfather's wife, they were huddled together under a blanket that had been wet by the wife to protect the kids, but the wet blankets did not protect the kids. The keeping the great grandfather from the house did not protect the kids. They died. And it is not just a sad story. It's a story of what would you do? What would you do, Fred?
Well, again, you either believe the police reports or you don't. They have more access to what exactly is happening. You believe in an afterlife, so you believe if you go in there and you get killed and you all die together, you're going to see each other upstairs. Well, I don't believe that, but that's irrelevant in this case. I think you got to live by believing that the police department or the federal officials, whoever making the final decision, know more than you. And if they say you have no chance, I'm sorry to say that, you'll die for sure, I think that's their job to protect life, and including the great-grandfather's life. He would be committing suicide. Maybe you're saying that's okay. That's where we, look, this is open to argument. There's no question about it. I didn't see the fire. The grandfather, the rest of his life, is going to have thoughts about his, of course, a lovely wife and his kids and his grandkids. But I think in the end, you've got to go by what the police tell you, because in this case, life and death is involved.
Talk about the issue of quality of life for just a moment, folks. Think about the quality of this man's life from here on out. He was, by all accounts, madly, madly in love with his dear wife, madly in love with his great-grandchildren. They have now perished. They're gone. What does he have to live for? I would submit to you that the quality of life is as important as life itself. And, Fred, I would say to you that if a government official, i.e. a police officer or a fireman, stood in front of me while my 5-year-old great-grandson was on the phone saying, "Grandpa, come and save me, come and get me," and that government official stood in front of me and said I couldn't go, he would not or she would not have a chance in hell of keeping me from my great-grandson. Now, I'm not blaming this great-grandfather for not going in there. What I'm saying is he had the right to go in there and try to do what he wanted to do. And shame on us for getting in his way and not allowing him to make the decision to go in or not to go in, to attempt to rescue or not to attempt to rescue. I don't think we ought to be doing that. And certainly if it was me, I would have either died trying or attempted and been successful in saving my family. And I just believe that he had that opportunity. He should have had that opportunity, and he wasn't allowed to have that opportunity and now he's by himself. His wife gone, his great-grandchildren gone.
So when my little genius brother Gary was 7 years of age, he contracted leukemia, and the doctors here gave him 6 months to live. This is way back in the late 60s. And my mother wouldn't accept it. So she crossed the border to Mexico many times to get something called Laetrile, which actually extended his life maybe 6 more months. He died August 23rd. So he lasted 10 months. I think the doctors here gave me either 4 or 6 months. We lasted 4 or 6 months. So she broke the law to save her son. My mother afterwards, for a time, became an alcoholic. She wanted to die. She wished herself cancer. She got her wish. She got breast cancer, which spread to her bones. But then she wanted to live. I saw a National Enquirer article on something called BCG. And it originally was used for tuberculosis, but now it was used at that time at UCLA Medical Center for cancer patients. So she started at the bottom level, and everybody said no. Finally, she talked to Dr. Donald Morton, who was at the head of it, and he said, and I was in the office when they talked, and he said, Bernice, it's not going to work, but you're trying so hard, we're willing to try. My mom lived 30 years later. She wrote a book called I Beat Cancer. She became an advocate for all kinds of health, holistic medicine thing. She pushed and pushed and pushed for more people to get to doctors and to take the healthy medicines and the non-bad ingredient type medicine, things like this. So she saved lives. So my point I'm trying to make is, just to maybe say what you just said, you never know what your future holds. Just like you're saying that this great-grandfather loved his wife dearly. No one could have loved my brother more than my mother loved my little brother Gary. And she really wanted to die. She almost got her wish, but then she awakened to the fact that she could save people, and she did. And again, she died 30 years later. So, Tom, you could be right. This guy could live a horrendous rest of his life, or he can do something like this. And I don't do something about fires. I don't know what the answer is. All I'm saying is that it's hard to say. I'm not in his head. You're not in his head. I wasn't in my mom's head. I saw her every day, and she really wanted to die. I'm sure right now this great-grandfather wants to die. But I think in the end, if I was to, and this is open to question, but if I was going to draw a line, I think you got to do what the federal officials or the police officers say, because, again, let's just say it's a situation where everybody's got to evacuate their homes. Do you have to listen to them or not? There's a point where you do have to listen, I think, to federal or local officials. At that point, they know more than you. So, folks, it's certainly open to question. It's not. I don't think it's black and white at all. Interesting topic, and there are 15 of these fires as we speak at 4:20 Pacific time right now going on in California.
Question, though, really, Fred, is not what he did or what he should have done. The question is, should he have had the ability to make the decision? That decision of whether to go and try to save his grandchild, his great-grandchild, and to save his wife was taken away from him. My point is, he should have had the chance to make the decision. Whatever decision he makes, I'm here to tell you, is a right decision. It's his decision to make. But taking the right to make the decision away from him is wrong. That's what I believe. I believe that a man ought to be able to make the decision whether to answer his great-grandchild's plea for help or not. Not sit there and listen to his great-grandchild die while he's on the phone asking great-grandpa to come get him.
Okay, but let's go to my point. The whole area has got to be evacuated. We've got to be able to get in there and stop the fire. We can't worry about 2 people in their homes who won't evacuate. Do those people have the right to stay in their homes? To me, that's the same exact question.
Well,
what's the answer?
The answer is yes, they do have the right to stay in their homes. It's their home, their property, and if they wish to stay in their homes, they should be able to stay in their homes, yes.
If you're putting other people at risk, putting other homes at risk, if the police officer, if the fire department can't do their job, if you're in the home, you have to do it differently. No, I disagree with you. See, there I do. So that's my point. I'm saying this is open to question. Tom, believes it 100%. I don't believe it 100%. I believe my side 55%. I don't know. But I do know that, because I've never been in a situation where my house was being burnt and I was asked to evacuate in a situation like this. But obviously, the great-grandfather was screaming and trying to talk to the fire people that can I go get my family, and they said no, and he listened to them, and they died. And he loved his wife. I saw him on TV many times today. He obviously loved his wife dearly, and of course he's going to love his grandkids. And Tom believes in an afterlife. I don't. You might. I don't know if it matters at this point. I think that there's got to be somebody that makes the final decision. And if it's you,
and it should not be government.
There's a lot of yous, Tom. Meaning, if this grandfather wanted to come in and 12 others wanted to do the same thing, we got a mess, even worse than it is. So, a lot of yous. In this case, it's just one guy. You're saying, but what if 10 other people came up and said they wanted to go and protect their house or something like that? At some point, you got to say you're putting too many other people at risk.
Trending Topics News Radio Live, coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona at the golf course. I'm Tom Simon. Fred Wallin is in Westlake Village, California. The head of CBS is in hot water, Fred. Leslie Moonves, accused of sexual misconduct, another one of these high-profile deals going on. The allegations came out in a New York tabloid earlier in the week, and now his wife is backing him up. The story comes out of New York, out of Hollywood, the Hollywood Reporter. Julie Chen addressed the sexual misconduct allegations on Monday's episode of The Talk, standing by a tweet she wrote last week about the embattled CBS chief. Chen doubled down on her defense of her husband, Leslie Moonves, on Monday's episode of The Talk, days after the New Yorker published an expose accusing the CBS chairman of sexual misconduct. Now, if these accusations are true, Fred, the guy ought to be gone. He ought to do some soul searching and figure out how to make some kind of amends to these women. The allegations are basically that over the course of decades, the CBS chairman, in other roles in the company, had pressured women to have sex with him, had forced them to kiss him, had much like Weinstein did, but not as so far as bad as Weinstein, if you can draw some kind of a comparison. CBS now has come out and said that they are launching an independent investigation, and meanwhile he's going to keep his job. I think that's the right thing for the corporation to do, but I think individually Moonves ought to just say, I'm stepping aside. I have some things to work on myself. But the question is, what do you think of Julie Chen's standing behind her man and coming out and saying the things that she said? Do you think she's right in publicly standing behind her man?
Well, there are a couple of possibilities. Obviously, she can actually believe that he's totally innocent, or two, she likes her job. Those are the possibilities. She likes the money coming in. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know Moonves, and I don't know Julie Chen. I mean, she's gotten her job. Did she get it on her talent, or did she get it on her relationship and being married to him? I don't know the answer to that, and neither do you. We don't know. I don't know if he's guilty. All I know is this. When this thing started with Weinstein and everything else, there are different cases. There really are. There are different. There's the Roy Moore case where allegedly he had affairs and attacked 14-year-old. That's one side. And totally on the other side, I'd say would be an Al Franken, who's kidding with Tweeden, who then goes on KBC radio in Los Angeles saying that he attacked her. Well, there was a cameraman there. I mean, the point is, he tried to be cute with her, but he didn't attack her. And then she also said that she never talked to him again or something. And then 3 years later, in 2009, there's pictures of them laughing together. So my point is there are two sides to this. One side, in my mind, would be like a Roy Moore. On the other side would be an Al Franken. I don't think Al Franken should ever have resigned. And I blame Gillibrand, the senator from New York, for pushing his hand in that case. But as far as Roy Moore is concerned, you have a president of the United States supporting and obviously a pedophile. So that's it. And I don't know where Moonves is. He could be totally innocent. He could be totally guilty. Chin could totally believe it 100%, or she could be doing it to keep her job. And nobody at this point knows.
Julie Chen said this in her tweet. Here's what she said, and this is the topic of today, folks. This is why we're talking about this today, because she came out and said she stands by this tweet. This is the tweet that she put out after her husband, the head of CBS, was accused of sexually harassing at least 6 women who worked for him or around him. She said, tweet, I have known my husband Leslie Moonves since the late 90s, and I have been married to him for almost 14 years. Leslie is a good man and a loving father, devoted husband, an inspiring corporate leader. He has always been a kind, decent, and moral human being. I fully support my husband and stand behind him and his statement. So you know what I think about the corporation. I think the corporation did the right thing by allowing him to stay on. I think Moonves did the wrong thing by staying on. I think he should step down personally. Now, the question is, what about the wife? Did she do the right thing by putting this statement out for her husband and then standing by it? Yes or no, Fred?
Well, I can't get into her head. If she believes it, that's one thing. If she doesn't believe it, look for a divorce very quickly. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know these people. I can only judge it on what they say. I have no. Let's see how this develops. I think, it's from a news perspective, I think the news people have that to be the first place they would go, would be to the wife, since she's not just a normal wife, but she's the TV personality. I think that's the obvious place you have to ask the first questions to. And who knows? I mean, there could be, it could all true or it could be all false. Somebody could be asking, trying to, in some way, extort money, or somebody could be 100% right on target. Fred does not know.
4 of the 6 women claimed that Moonves forcibly touched or kissed them during business meetings. According to actress Lena Douglas, one of the accusers, she was fired for not participating in Moonves' alleged behavior. Moonves denied the allegations in a statement. Throughout my time at CBS, we have promoted a culture of respect and opportunity for all employees, he said, and have consistently found success, elevating women to top executive positions across our country. Again, Fred, I will say that Moonves is wrong for not stepping down. The corporation is right for keeping him, and I would applaud Julie Chen for standing behind her soulmate, standing behind her husband. I think she's right for doing what she's doing. The only person that I think is wrong here is Moonves. I think he ought to be a leader, a true leader, and step aside.
So you're saying 4 of the 6 have accused him of definitely rough thing. What about the 21-plus women about Donald Trump? Should he step down? What's the difference? There's 21 versus 6. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is, I believe, that I believe at least 4 of these women. Okay. I'm not like you, Fred, that wants to take a nap.
I believe 4 of the Trump women. So
then you believe he should be stepping down. I don't believe him. I don't have enough information yet to believe him. So I don't believe him.
How do you get the information? What's the difference?
And Fred, some of these accusations against Moonves occurred while he had the CBS post. None of the accusations against the president occurred while he was running for president or while he was president.
No, but the hush money was when he was running for president. The actions happened before that. But if any of these 5 women are telling the truth, that if there's 2 and Avante says there are 3 more, that makes 5. Let's say one's telling the truth. Shouldn't he step down? You just said Moonves should. Let's be consistent here, Tom. You don't know what really happened. I don't know what really happened. But mathematically, the odds of all 6 women lying would be much greater than all 21 women lying in Trump's case. Would they not? Just mathematically. Just keep multiplying 2s, folks, and see what 21, 2 squared times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 21 times, and see the number that you see, astronomical number as far as Donald Trump is concerned. 6 is a big number, too. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So it'd be 100. I think it's 128 to 1 that all 6 are lying. Multiply that by a zillion, and that's what the odds of all the women in the Trump situation would be lying. So Tom says that Moonves should step down, doesn't think Trump should step down. I think the same thing should occur in both cases, which really is they both should stay on until you can prove it.
Meanwhile, one of your favorite talk show hosts, Sean Hannity, had the president on the radio in a surprise visit. The president was on Air Force One, apparently, and agreed to talk with Hannity. Hannity wanted him for 25 minutes. They negotiated. The president gave him 10 minutes. And so they talked as the president was on Marine One, the helicopter. Are Hannity and the president too close, Fred?
Well, of course. But the people that watch Fox don't care. Of course they're too close. You're a newsman. I'm a sports guy, but I know that I can't be too close to the players, and you can't be too close to politicians. So of course they're too close, but it's Fox.
Yeah, but Hannity is not a news guy. Hannity is the furthest thing from a news guy.
People that watch Tom don't know the difference. Meaning, you get Shepard Smith in the afternoon and Hannity at night. They don't distinguish. They don't differentiate between the two. It's Fox. They either agree with Fox or disagree with Fox. So my point is, of course they shouldn't be that close because you can't get an honest analysis of anything if they're that close. But it's Fox. Fox is Fox.
As we head into the last quarter hour of our program today, I'm Tom Simon, coming to you in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the golf course today. Fred Wallin is pretty close to the beach there in Westlake Village, California, my old stomping grounds. We come to you every Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock Pacific time, right here on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And I'll get it completely right eventually, Ralph. My apologies for tripping on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. You can look it up on YouTube and on many other outlets throughout the country. And we invite you to join us on Mondays right here on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Fred, President Trump had a press conference today with the Italian Prime Minister. In that press conference, he made two bits of news. One was that he said that he would sit down with Iran without preconditions, and he thought that was a good thing. So do I. And the second thing he said was that he is willing to shut the government down unless he gets money for his border wall. I'm not sure I agree with that one. You say what about Iran?
Well, I think he should talk to anybody. I don't care, but you can't believe anything he says, so it really doesn't matter. He can talk to Kim. He can talk to Putin. We don't know what really happened. All I can tell you is that Kim is apparently, from our own photography, building more nuclear sites, not fewer nuclear sites. So, with Trump coming back saying it's resolved, it wasn't resolved. Exactly the opposite has occurred, and who knows what he said to Putin in private because he wouldn't allow anybody to be there. And the Russian people, apparently, when they found out what was said, went nuts and applauded Putin. So, it couldn't have been too good from our perspective. And what was your second thing? So you said Iran, and what was the other point? What else did we were talking about here? What did you just bring up?
The border wall. He says that he will shut the government down if he doesn't get his money for the border wall. I think he's got about 0% chance of getting money for the border wall before the election. But I think that he's got a pretty good chance of shutting the government down in order to do that. But Trump does this a lot. You know that, Fred. And folks, listening, that one of the way Trump negotiates anything is that he first makes an outlandish claim, an outlandish position, and then he falls back from it in order to negotiate. Is that what's happening here, Fred?
I don't know, but if he should close the government down, it could get him impeached. Because obviously, even the Republicans are totally opposed to it. And, the percentage of, every House seat is up, and a lot of the senatorial seats are up. Now, it's going to be tough for the Democrats to take over the Senate, not as tough to take over the House. So he probably would never be convicted under those circumstances, but he certainly could be impeached and embarrass himself beyond belief. Because, and again, unlike Nixon or somebody like that, he doesn't have the whatever it takes to resign. Even Nixon knew when it was time and go to where to talk to him. So in answer to the question, it's like a 5-year-old stomping, Mommy, I've got to have this cookie. I've got to have this cookie. And the mother says, no, you have to have dinner first and do your homework first. And he keeps stomping. That's Donald Trump. He's like a 5-year-old kid. He doesn't get his way. If I remember it correctly, part of the campaign, and a very important part of the campaign, was Donald Trump stating the following: who's going to pay for the wall? And the crowd roars, Mexico. Who's going to? And he puts his hand to his ear. Who's going to pay for the wall? The crowd goes, Mexico. Mexico's not going to pay for a nickel. Tom is. Fred might, if it gets passed, which it never will. But the point is, first of all, the timing is horrendous. 99 days, I think, before the midterms for Republicans who are running. They got to be saying they go home and tell their wives, this man is crazy. This man's going to get us defeated in the House race in November 6th. I mean, this man is nuts. So your point, again, well taken. In business, you get away with this, but so many other people are involved here. The thing is, he doesn't care about the other people. All he cares about is himself, making himself look grandiose. So that's why he says things like this. That wall will never be built. You could never, never, never be built. Too many people know the truth about it. It will never get built. But the point is, in Trump's case, he doesn't care. He just says something, and if he shuts the government down, it's going to cost, I don't know how many seats, Tom. I guess, let's say there are 20 close races. Some of those are going to turn to Democrats or 30 close races. Some of those are going to turn Democratic if it'll never happen, because there's no way that even the Republicans are going to vote to shut the government. But if it should happen, Republicans are going to lose the House, I think, 100%.
Now, folks, those of you who haven't heard us before need to remember that Fred has said repeatedly on this program that Trump would never meet with Kim Jong-un. That meeting would never happen. Guess what had happened? So you just heard what he said about the wall. Guess what? Guess what about the wall? Same thing.
But nothing happened. They have built, apparently, based on our own photography, more nuclear sites, or they're starting to build more nuclear sites than fewer. So again,
what about your claim? What about your claim, Fred, on Trending Topics News Radio Live over and over again when I told you that they ought to meet, that you kept saying they will never meet, that meeting will never happen?
I didn't say I didn't want to meet. I said they would never meet. So they met, but nothing happened because Trump.
Okay.
Again,
as long as you admit that you were wrong, that's all that meant.
And when the world blows up, I want you to admit, if we're still on the air, that I was right about Donald Trump from the start. That this egomaniac, a malignant narcissist, will blow up the world once Mueller gets right on his tail. I don't think there's any question about it. He'll send soldiers without bone spurs to go put themselves on the line to die to save his job. That's a guarantee from right here in Westlake Village, California. But as far as the North Korea thing, you got two autocrats, one much brighter, the younger one, and one much dumber, the older one. And the younger one obviously either fooled the older one, or the older one didn't really push for what we wanted, which was denuclearization, because he's building new nuclear sites. So who wins? Who won in that negotiation? If it's true, if our pictures are true, that he's building new nuclear sites, North Korea defeated Trump. Trump comes back from that meeting and he says, it's over, we win. Yeah, let's take credit for it. No way. That point is, and some people out there listening might still be on his side, but eventually, I promise you, you will wake up.
And by the way, folks, remember, it's been 9 months, and Kim Jong-un has not fired another missile. Dateline Los Angeles, LeBron James thinks the president is using athletics and athletes to split up the country, and he's rejecting the premise, according to CNN, like an opponent's ill-advised layup. Quote, what I've noticed over the past few months, James shared with CNN's Don Lemon during a sit-down interview Monday, is he's kind of used sports to kind of divide us, and that's something that I can't relate to. Did LeBron James move to L.A. so he could comment on the president, Fred?
No. He was commenting from Cleveland. He's commented always about the political issues, and he's 100% right. You have to understand, folks, Donald Trump in the 80s was part with his USFL club in New York. He wanted to become an NFL owner, and they laughed. They wouldn't let him in because he'd been caught so many times cheating and stealing and getting caught in legal situations. The NFL turned him down. So when he had an opportunity, when the players started kneeling to go after the NFL, he took that advantage. And I think LeBron James is 100% correct. And the funny thing is, Dallas Cowboys owner indicated last week that Jerry Jones, that if the players kneel, they're not going to be Dallas Cowboys. The NFL told him, shut up, no more conversation on the folks not kneeling, because we don't have a deal with the players union. So, yeah, I agree with LeBron James 100%. I wish more athletes got involved politically. Thank you, LeBron, for getting involved politically. Thank you immensely for getting involved in politically, because, again, I remember Michael Jordan, somebody asked him, how come you don't get involved politically about racial issues, and he basically said, I think he did say, Republicans buy my shoes too. So he didn't do it. LeBron is. Thank you, LeBron James.
And the best basketball player ever on the planet was Michael Jordan, and he was right on his referencing that he should not get involved in politics. Colin Kaepernick was referenced by LeBron James in this interview, and he supported Colin Kaepernick, did LeBron James. I could care less what a basketball player thinks about the President of the United States, Fred. I want him to play basketball. I want them to play football. I want them to play baseball. That's what I pay them for. I do not pay them to give me their idea of whether they think a guy in the President's shoes is doing a good job.
So what you're saying is a basketball player can't be bright as a TV personality like Sean Hannity? Give me a break. Sean Hannity gives us his opinions. You don't think LeBron James has the same rights as Sean Hannity? There's no comparison in brain power.
Come on, Fred. Are you nuts or what? Sean Hannity gets paid to give his opinion.
Oh, I mean, and
LeBron James gets paid to dunk a basketball. That's what he gets paid for, to dunk a basketball, not to give us his opinion. I don't care what LeBron James thinks about the fate of the world.
I don't think anybody cares what you don't care about. There are millions that do care what LeBron James says. LeBron James has more, I don't know if it's Twitter, or TAC, or Facebook or something. He's got millions of people who follow him every single day. He's got every single right to say what he wants. And you're like, what's her name on Fox saying, get back on the court and dribble. Give me a break. A man can do more than dribble the basketball. The man can think. Just because you can play basketball, you could be the smartest man on earth. I'm not saying he's the smartest man on earth, but I've heard him talk. He's very, very bright on a lot of subjects. Just because you play basketball, that doesn't give you the same right as anything else, any other job in this world to speak up and tell us what you think. I can't disagree with you more. I
love Sandy Koufax,
what?
But I don't want to hear what Sandy Koufax says about politics. I mean,
no one's telling you to agree with it. He's got a right to say what he wants. I mean, that's what do we want here? I mean, just because
he gets paid to play baseball, he gets paid to play basketball, he gets paid to play football. If Joe Montana starts telling me what he thinks about the president, I tune out.
Well, then tune out. I mean, nobody cares if you tune out, or nobody cares if 40% tune out or 50% tune out. He has a right to say what he wants. The 12th man on a basketball team, or the 15th man, depending, has the same right. Colin Kaepernick and LeBron has given millions to charity, so that's positive. But let's go to Colin Kaepernick, because you mentioned his name. This all started, of course, when he started kneeling last year, and nobody hired him, so it cost him millions of dollars. On top of that, he spent millions of dollars in charities and his time in going down to the poor neighborhoods in this country. And what they're kneeling for, folks, is the police and government agencies killing black people on a much higher percentage and hurting black people on a much higher percentage than white people. And I think that's a subject that we have to broach every day on this show and every day in our regular lives. That's something that is very important. And here's a guy who has given millions again. You can go back to Muhammad Ali. I mean, there have been very few athletes, Tom, who've done what Kaepernick has done or LeBron James is doing. You got Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, giving up 3 or 4 years of his career, giving up millions, giving up his championship in the boxing ring, and he was never quite the same when he came back after being out of it for that period of time. And all he would have had to done is go around the country maybe Europe and make speeches for the government. But he was anti-Vietnam, so he refused to walk over the line. I mean, thank you, Muhammad Ali. And I wish he died more than 2 years ago. He died June of 2 years ago now. Every day, to me, in the world of sports, there's only been one Muhammad Ali, not because of what he did in the ring, in my opinion, because of what he did out of the ring. He fought for something. John Carlos, Tommy Smith, 1968, Mexico City, and the fist. I mean, that said it as they should be saying it.
I love Muhammad Ali. Don't care what he thinks about politics. Don't care one bit.
But why do you care? Why does it make any difference if you just happen to be an athlete who has opinions? Just because you're an athlete doesn't make you stupid. Just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you're not entitled to the same opinion that Tom or Fred have or any other.
Not on the field, Fred. Not on the field. You talk about Kaepernick, and you talk about Kaepernick, and I'll say this: he got what he deserved, quite frankly.
Folks, anybody out there think collusion? You talk about collusion in the government. Anybody out there think that there are 32 teams in the NFL, and anybody out there believe that Kaepernick's not among the top 32 quarterbacks in the world? And if you want to go second stringers, anybody going to believe that he's not among the top 64 quarterbacks in the world? Nobody hired him last year. So far, nobody's hired this year. NFL could get hit, and he's suing them through his company, I guess. But anyway, the point is, in the end, that's going to be proven as collusion. I mean, it's just no question. Tom, you're
Fred. Yeah. I have a client who is opening up a new restaurant right now.
Played well for San Francisco.
And in this restaurant he has baristas, people who make coffee, espresso. He's hiring some. Maybe he hires the best barista that's ever walked on the face of the earth, can draw little cream-colored pictures on the top of the coffee, the whole bit. If that person starts offending his customers, if that person starts talking about things that offend his customers, no matter how good a cup of coffee that person makes, how great the espresso is that they put together on the table, he's going to fire that person. And that's what happened to Kaepernick. It has nothing to do with his skill on the field. I agree with you that he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the country. But he offended the customers of the team that he played for, and so he got fired. And that would happen to you, would happen to me, would happen to anybody in any line of work. If you offend the customer, you're going to get kicked out.
I mean, that's just my opinion. You're using numbers that don't really exist. I mean, the NFL had lost ratings the year before and the year before. So many people are cutting the cord, meaning they're getting rid of the DirecTVs and the Dish networks and things like this. They're just going to the Wi-Fi type thing. They don't have as many stations, so there's fewer games that you're going to get on TV. So the ratings are down, but they were down last year and the year before and the year before because of the cord cutting. So I don't know if the majority, I don't care if in fact, I don't even care if the majority are offended. He didn't change the outcome of the game by kneeling. He's kneeling for a good cause. I think
he offended the customers. What don't you get about the fact that he offended the customers?
Wouldn't have done what he did later on. When Hitler started in 1932.
Oh, here we go with Hitler. Let
me finish, Tom. When they started, they didn't start killing people like immediately. It took time. It took a year or two for Hitler and things like that. Maybe if more people had kneeled and screamed and hollered and done talk shows like this in 1932, maybe people would have been awakened. If you don't think it could happen here, folks, it could. Do you think we're any better than the Germans? They were taken advantage of by a much brighter guy than Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. And how many people died across Europe? 6 million Jews. How many million gypsies? How many Asians?
Oh, Fred, you're so far off base when you compare Trump to Hitler. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing.
Because nobody stood up. Thank you, Colin, for standing up, and thank you, LeBron, for standing up. And I think on this network here, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, there's a whole slew of people on a lot of shows, even the sports shows, that do stand up, and I'm grateful to them.
Trending Topics News Radio Live on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Fred Wallin, final thought before we get out of here.
Just very, very quickly, I just want to say that in baseball yesterday, Atlanta Braves beat the Dodgers 4-1. But the big story, and we don't have time to go through the whole shenanigans here, but almost a no-hitter, then a no-hitter, and we find out at 18 years of age he had been writing anti-gay and anti-black things on Twitter or Facebook or something. I don't know how people, honestly, since I'm so computer illiterate, I have no idea how people can find things from 7 years ago. But the timing was unbelievable. Right after he had gone 8 2/3 of a no-hitter, this thing came out, and then he, of course, apologized. But if I'm a black player on his team, or if they're a gay player on his team, but if I'm a black player on his team, am I ever going to trust him? I don't know. I know in our show earlier today, you said people can change. If I'm a black guy and somebody wrote what he wrote, I don't know if I'd ever trust the guy.
Fred, are you the same guy you were when you were 18 years of age? Absolutely not, and neither am I. If I had to live for what the things I thought about or did when I was 18 years of age today at 59, I'd be in sore trouble. We do things at 18 years of age that we would never think of doing as adults. And at 18 years of age, a man is not nearly mentally capable of making right decisions. It's just not happening. Most men don't mature until they're 27, 28, and further along than that. So come on, let's not judge the guy for what he did at 18 years of age. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he can change.
Simon is much more forgiving than Fred Wallin. Folks, don't forget to listen to us and watch us on Facebook, Tom Simon, Trending Topics News Radio, every day at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock in the East, and every Monday right here on Cufferly's owned radio network.
That's it for today. We'll see you later on Trending Topics News Radio Live. Tom Simon coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona. Fred Wallin in Westlake Village, California. See you later, Fred.
Bye, guys.